Another 5 or so hour stream from Reynad revealed a whole bunch of changes coming to the Bazaar. So let's dive into item balance, 1v1 game modes, and the fancy new leveling system in which we add modifiers. First things first, let's take a look at this new leveling modifiers idea. Currently, levels are designed to keep merchants more appealing as you go through the game. You can't just hold on to the super powerful sniper rifle you got at the beginning of the game, because things are getting a higher level, your opponents will have higher level weapons, and the merchants offer higher level weapons. You're supposed to be able to shift up your build constantly because of this. However, levels are a bit too arbitrary. It makes holding on to any of these lower level items weird and inefficient, even if they fit your build quite nicely or you've really grown attached to them. The upgrade system is definitely getting reworked completely, at least according to Reynad. Currently it feels bad to not just upgrade your one biggest item and then churn through all the others looking for better versions or similar items throughout the phase, and while that's good and all, they want to encourage you to be able to pivot, to completely switch up your build if you want, and maybe this new system will give you a reason to do that. So let's take a look at it. This new modifier system. In theory, it repaints the card, including art changes to the card as well, giving it a special effect, which will effectively upgrade the item. In this special way of upgrading items, each item should have multiple ways it can be upgraded with different modifiers. This will drastically change the game and make it drastically more replayable, the important factor. They were going to do a little bit of this sort of affix system or modifier system, whatever you want to call it, alongside the level system. But next to this modifier system, the levels just aren't as fun or as interactive, so they seem like they're going to be rolling it out to all items. So an example for this type of modifier system I saw in the community Discord, which I should put a link below if you guys want to join us and chat about the Bazaar. Links are all down there. However, an example I saw there would be the sort of frost affix, or prefix in this case. So you would have a frost sniper rifle, or you'd have a frost atlatl, and maybe it upgrades your weapon so it deals maybe a little bit of extra damage, but also adds a freeze element into it. Maybe freeze is a little bit strong, so maybe be careful with that one, but there's an idea. Instead, you could also have the fire atlatl, or the fire sniper rifle, in which case it would do burning damage as well, on top of a little bit of extra damage to help give it this sort of upgradey feel. Next up, we heard a lot about how they're going to be implementing new things with the game stages, or in one particular case, which I'll get into, how they've already implemented a new part of the game stage. So, in our exploration phase, they are still trying to add more events into it, so it isn't just merchant. Those aren't in the game yet, but they are developing plenty of them and they have a lot of good ideas. One main one that he does want to introduce is, although sparingly, you can come across other classes which appear as merchants. So if you're playing as Vanessa, you could encounter Pygmalion the Merchant and buy one of Pygmalion's items. I mentioned this in a previous video, and again, go check those out if you want more information about how the Bazaar got to where it is. But that is huge for replayability and really, really huge for some very weird builds. There is nothing I like more than building a sandcastle out of something that no one has ever seen before. My sandcastle is made out of shoelaces, but it's still good, and you've never seen it before, and it's going to kick your ass, so deal with it. Another thing he wants to add is that some events should have a callback to previous choices you made. So say you bought something off of JJ, I mean, there are definitely going to be better events that we can tie this to, but let's say, for instance, you bought something off JJ. Say JJ and Pol currently having an argument, maybe Pol only offers you 2 items. That's a stupid idea. They're definitely going to come up with much better ideas, and I'm sure you can as well. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just the talky man. There's also a bunch of rework stuff coming to the current exploration stage. Keena's getting a bit reworked because her non-weapon items is a little bit too vague. Monsters are going to be a little bit rebalanced. They're super strong early on and super weak late at the moment, which is kind of a nice thematic thing, but it needs a bit of working. And again, lots more encounters added. Onto the new game stage that was introduced. And it's not really a stage per se, it's part of a stage, but the sandstorm is finally here. It now appears towards the end of a fight after 45 seconds and damages each player at the same time. It works a little bit like Hearthstone fatigue to ensure fights don't last too long, and it currently starts at sort of 1 damage and then exponentially increases until it's doing 60, 80, over 100, etc. There is still currently the sort of battle end timer of 60 seconds, which they're going to be removing, but we didn't get to see the full effect of the Sandstorm absolutely wipe out players, so it'll be good to see that too. Also, the VFX still need work. At the moment it's just a little bit of sparkly particles, but that is definitely changing. However, with the Sandstorm now existing, this gave quite a bit of a buff to control builds, because they can now purely focus on defense and rely on the Sandstorm to do their damage for them. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the item changes that have come in these recent patches. Balance, balance, balance. They have managed to largely stop one-shot builds, which weren't fun to watch. The games were over in less than a second. But now the opposite end of the spectrum is kind of OP. They need to balance out these infinite stun lock, permanent maximum health bullshit builds. Every couple of days there's basically a new patch at the moment, so the game is changing a lot. But they are sticking on top of these very strong builds and making sure they are annihilated, so that when we finally get our hands on the game, there shouldn't be too many ridiculously OP strategies that beat everything. They have also reworked some of the mechanics of the game. Regeneration used to tick down by 1 each second, so you'd heal for 10 to begin with, then 9, then 8, etc. But now it works like reverse poison, and when you have 10 stacks of regeneration, you heal for 10 each time it ticks. Cooldown is also being slightly reworked. It's not in the game yet, but they definitely have said they want to work on this. It will soon be so that you cannot stack it exponentially. You will be able to stack it, but it will work more like a speed stat. Speed again will work more like Poison does currently. It will increase the speed of charging, and as this is a stat they can control, they can stop it from going infinite a little bit better than they can at the moment with cooldown, be it percentage or flat. On top of that, a lot of new items are coming to the game. The classes currently only have about 65 cards each, and they should have 100, so there's a lot more just to see for the 2 classes we have seen, but they're still looking at a lot of unique and interesting mechanics for the classes we haven't. Just in the stream, he mentioned that the Chef class, Jules, they're sort of experimenting with the idea of maybe a couple of board slots being hobs or worktops or something, which cooks the item you put on top of it, making it stronger, evolving it, whatever. He said they're making no promises in this regard, but it's really good flavouring for the class and makes me excited to see what's coming for the others. The user interface has had a lot of work done to it too. While it may not seem like it's fully polished, and it certainly isn't, there's a lot to come, and a little bit that we've seen. The toys, for example, are now a bit more functional. There is a training dummy as well, and although it's a little bit too spam-clicky for Reynad, most new toys will be more like a 2-part minigame, like the bubbles, or he went into detail about some sort of mining laser or something, which would, you click to shoot and then click to gather the little beads or whatever comes off of it, I'm not sure. We can also very helpfully now see ammo on the cards. It appears next to the damage number in a different colour, which is really nice. And where the level currently is, if they're going to be working through this new upgrade feature, then potentially they're going to be adding cooldown there instead. So at a glance, we'll be able to see the damage, the ammo, and the cooldown of the item. 3 of the more important stats to see at a glance. That just leaves all the polish that isn't there yet that Reynad was talking to us about. All the bells and whistles are still very much missing. So much polish is to come. There is VFX, sound effects, everything that is currently just temporary and all needs to be added. Every different ability and every different attack will have its own little flavour. We still currently have 45 seconds of snake jazz whenever you get poisoned. Just an interesting sound clip that plays every time you get poisoned over and over and over again, which they have deemed snake jazz. It will be better in the final version. He even alluded to some of the attacks getting their own channeled visual effects. The example he was given was a flamethrower which was going off for a few seconds repeatedly as a sort of channeled ability. Now, let's take a look at the frequent requests you guys have and what Reynad has been saying about them in this past stream. First up, when will we get a beta? His rough answer is sort of no. The game will be finished when we play it, I think, is his general idea. The beta even should be a very polished version of the game. And there's a reason for this. There are a lot of deviations from the current mainstream way of making a card strategy game, and a lot of innovations on what people aren't necessarily sure of right now. So he wants to have his best foot forwards once we all get our hands on the game. You only get one chance at a first proper impression, and he doesn't want that to be an unpolished game with bugs and missing features. He's already seen the backlash from YouTube comments against the current innovations, so he doesn't want people playing the game until it's finished. and people can really see how fun it actually is. So, I hate to say it, everyone out there, but if you were the one who cannot quite see the innovation and just complained that it's not a Hearthstone clone, it's your own fault you're not getting beta access early on. Sorry. However, we did get some good news with regards to friend lists and being able to 1v1 people. Reynad and the team saw our feedback with that on that regard, and saw the constructive input on that regard, and went, yeah, sure, we need to implement straight away. We want this to be a communicative and involved community-based game. So yeah, we need people to be able to play against their friends. So yeah, you will be able to have sort of private lobbies of friends. I don't know how it's going to look or work. You can actually even see on the current homepage, there's a little lock button, but that is a future friends list. It's going to all be in client. In terms of ever seeing the other classes in these builds, there's a lot more content to come. The other classes, all 6 of them that we will be getting at launch, are in different points of their development. Scuffed versions of them are basically done, but they want to spend more time on them and give us a full polished look at them. Progression and achievement systems are also already mapped out and defined in documents, and they even got some wireframes ready to go. They're just not in the demo build right now because they don't necessarily need to be. But it's just good to know that they're there and production has been happening on them. There are a lot of improvements being made, so if you have your doubts now, stick around. We're in for one hell of a ride, and I really think the destination is going to be worth it. You just need to hold in there for a little bit with us. Reynad suggested he'll be streaming a lot more this month, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you catch any recaps we release for any juicy stuff that he goes through while he streams for many hours at a time. As always, if the video was helpful, please do leave a like as it really helps the channel out. I have been Gamesplay Greg, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao!